The sand is hot beneath her feet. She can hear it before she sees it. The roar of 50,000 voices, the smell of the crowd, the heat radiating off stone that has been baking in the North African sun since morning. She is 22 years old. She has a baby she will never hold again. She adjusts her torn tunic. She pins her hair back up because she refuses to look disheveled for this moment. She has decided that if she is going to die today, she is going to die with dignity. She walks forward. How she got to this arena, to this sand, to this morning in Carthage in the year 203 AD is a story that does not begin with a crime. It does not begin with violence, no. It does not begin with anything most people would consider a reason to die. It begins with a choice, and with a diary she kept in a prison cell that has survived 1,800 years. Hi, my name is John O'Connor, and this is Everyday Saints. Every other week on this show, we go somewhere familiar, a name most people recognize, a story most people think they know. Last week, that was Augustine. This week, we go somewhere where most people have never been. 2,000 years back, into a Roman prison in North Africa, into one of the oldest surviving documents written by a woman in the ancient world. If you are new here, welcome aboard. Stick around, and if this connects with you, subscribe so you don't miss next week. We drop a new saint every Thursday. Her name was Vibia Perpetua, and what I'm about to tell you, most of it, comes not from a biographer writing centuries later, not from church records reconstructed after the fact. It comes from her words, written in that cell, knowing she was going to die. This is the story of Saint Perpetua of Carthage. We are starting in Carthage, North Africa. The year is approximately 181 AD. Now, I want you to picture this city because it is nothing like anything you might imagine when you hear North Africa. Carthage in the 2nd century is not a dusty backwater. It is one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire, the 3rd largest city in the Western world after Rome and Alexandria. A coastal city on the Mediterranean, bustling, sophisticated, educated. The kind of place where philosophers argue in the markets and wealthy families, well, they send their children to the best schools. Into this world, Perpetua is born, the daughter of a prosperous family of some standing. We do not know her exact birth year, but she is approximately 22 years old when she dies. We know her father is a pagan, a man of some local prominence who takes his family's reputation very seriously. We know her mother is a Christian. We know she has brothers, one of whom is preparing for baptism alongside her. We know she has received an excellent education because her diary reveals a woman who writes with precision, observation, and a kind of unsentimental clarity that is remarkable in any era. By 203 AD, Perpetua is a young woman and a mother. She has an infant son that she is still nursing. Her husband is absent from the diary. Most historians believe she may already be widowed. She is in the process of becoming a Christian, preparing for baptism when the world falls in on her. The Roman Emperor Septimius Severus has issued an edict. Imperial subjects are forbidden from converting to Christianity or Judaism. The penalty for violation is severe, and in Carthage, the governor Hilarianus decides to enforce it. Perpetua and 4 companions are arrested. They have not hurt anyone. They have not broken any civil law. Their crime is that they are in the process of choosing a faith. They are taken to prison. Here's where Perpetua picks up her pen and begins to write. The first prison is a holding cell, and her description of it is sensory and immediate, in the way that only someone actually there could write it. She describes the darkness, the crushing heat of too many bodies in too little space, the noise, And above all, the fear. Not for herself, no. She makes that very clear. But for her baby. Her infant son is not with her. In the chaos of the arrest and processing, he has been left with her family. And Perpetua, who is still nursing, is sitting in a dark Roman cell in anguish. Not about her death sentence, but about her child. 2 deacons from the local Christian community find out what is happening. They bribe the prison guards. We don't know how much it cost them, but to allow the prisoners to be moved to a better section of the facility. A place where family members can visit, where the conditions are at least survivable. Perpetua's mother comes. She brings the baby. Perpetua writes, "I nursed my baby who was faint from hunger." She describes the anxiety of the days of separation, the specific physical torment of a nursing mother separated from an infant. And then she writes the line that has stayed with readers for 1800 years. Suddenly, the prison was made a palace for me, so that I would sooner be there than anywhere else. A palace. A Roman prison in the 3rd century, stone floors, inadequate food, the smell of fear and confinement. A palace. Because her baby is in her arms and she can nurse him. That is Perpetua's voice. Direct, unadorned, absolutely clear about what matters. While she is in prison, her father comes to see her. More than once. And these scenes, which Perpetua records in her diary with the same unsentimental clarity she seems to bring to everything, are some of the most emotionally complex passages in her entire account. Her father loves her. This is not in question. He is not a villain. He is a man watching his daughter walk towards death and trying with every tool he has to stop it. He pleads with her. He weeps. He tells her to think of her baby who needs a mother. He tells her to think of him, an old man who cannot survive losing her. He argues that one small gesture, just making a quick offering to the emperor's gods, a meaningless public formality, would end all of this. She could walk out. She could go home. She could nurse her son and watch him grow up. Perpetua's response is one of the most quietly devastating things in the diary. She points to a small clay pitcher sitting nearby. "Father," she says, "do you see this pitcher?" He says, "Yes." "Can it be called by any other name than what it is?" He says, "No." "So it is with me," she says. "I am a Christian. I cannot be called anything other than what I am." He leaves in despair. He comes back. He comes back repeatedly. In the days before the trial, at the trial itself, throwing himself at her feet, kissing her hands, begging. At the trial, the governor also appeals to her. He looks at the nursing mother standing before him and says, "Spare your father's white hairs. Spare the tender years of your child." And Perpetua says, "I am a Christian." The governor, apparently frustrated beyond patience, orders soldiers to beat her father into silence. Perpetua watches this happen, watches her father struck because of her refusal, and does not recant. She writes about it with sorrow. She is not cold. She is not indifferent to his suffering. But she is clear. The sentence is passed. The 5 of them will die in the arena. I want to pause here and tell you about the other woman in this story, because this episode would be incomplete without her. Felicity is a slave. She is one of Perpetua's companions in prison, and she is 8 months pregnant at the time of their arrest. Now, Roman law was very specific. Pregnant women could not be executed, which meant that when the day of the arena came, Felicity might be left behind. And this terrifies her, not because she wants to die, but because she does not want to face that arena without her companions. She does not want to walk into the last thing alone. 2 days before the scheduled execution, Felicity goes into labor. Early, painful, in a prison cell. The guards mock her while she labors. One of them says, "If you suffer so much now, what will you do when you face the wild beasts?" Felicity's answer, laboring in a Roman prison cell, is one of the most extraordinary sentences in this entire story. She says, "Now I am the one who suffers, but then another will be in me who will suffer for me, because I will be suffering for him." Now, the first time I read that, I had to digest that. And what I think she means is this. Right now, she is the one in pain, giving birth. But very soon, when she faces the beasts and the sword, Christ himself will be the one suffering in her and for her, because she is willingly suffering for him. She gives birth to a girl. A Christian woman of Carthage adopts the baby immediately, and Felicity, having just delivered her child, is cleared to join her companions in the arena. Think about that. A slave woman, fresh from labor, choosing to walk towards death so she would not have to face it alone. It is now March 7th, 203 AD. The arena at Carthage. This is a real place. Archaeologists have excavated it. It seated somewhere between 20 and 50,000 people. On festival days, it was full. The spectacle of execution was, in Roman culture, entertainment. The deaths of criminals and enemies and increasingly Christians, watched by crowds who had come to see blood. Perpetua and her companions walk in. The account of what happens in the arena was not written by Perpetua. The diary ends in the prison. What follows was written by an eyewitness who was there and who added to it after the death. He writes that their faces were shining, that they walked in with joy, genuine, visible joy. That enraged and angered the crowd, because it was not what they had come to see. They had come to see fear. They had come to see begging and breaking. Instead, they got people walking toward them like they had somewhere better to be. A mad cow is released. Now, the early documentation says mad cow, but most historians believe it was actually a wild bull. It charges Perpetua and throws her to the ground. Her tunic tears. She gets up. She pins her hair back because a woman in mourning wears her hair loose, and she refuses to look like she is in mourning. Not here, not that day. She helps Felicity up, her companion who gave birth just 2 days ago, who is still physically recovering, and the two of them stand together, waiting. Then the gladiator comes. He is young. He is nervous. His first blow misses, strikes her collarbone, and glances off. She cries out in pain. And then, and this is the moment that has echoed through 18 centuries, she takes his trembling hand. She guides the blade to her own throat. The eyewitness writes that she could not have died without his conscious act of her own will, that she directed it, that she chose it completely to the end. She was 22 years old. The eyewitness who wrote the account of the arena ends his record with a sentence that has stayed with me since I first read it. He writes that on that morning, the martyrs walked into the arena not as condemned criminals, but as people going to heaven, as if they were already somewhere else, already arriving at something. The crowd expected performance of fear. What they got was something they had no category for. I don't know what that looked like exactly. None of us do. But I have been thinking about what it takes to walk into something that hard with your hair pinned up and your face calm. And I think it takes having settled, completely and finally, the question of who you are and what you believe. Perpetua had answered that question in a prison cell with a baby on her lap. By the time she reached the sand, there was nothing left to decide. All right, back on the porch. The thing I keep returning to with Perpetua is the diary. I mean, she did not have to write it. Nobody asked her to. She was sitting in a Roman prison with a nursing infant, a death sentence, a father who was breaking apart in front of her. And she picked up a pen and recorded it all. Clearly, honestly, without self-pity and without false courage. Just, this is what is happening. This is what I feel. This is what I believe. She wrote it because she believed the story was worth telling. What God was doing in her life was worth documenting, especially in the hardest part of it. That kind of courage makes me reflect on the struggles we all face. Not an arena, not a death sentence, but something real. The hard conversation you've been avoiding. The faith you've been trying to hold on to even when it costs you. The version of yourself you refuse to let go, even when the people around you are pressuring you to be someone else. Perpetua's father was not wrong to love her. His grief was real. His fear for her was real. But she understood something he couldn't yet see. That there are things worth being, and worth being fully, even when the cost is high. That some choices are not really choices at all if you know who you are. I am a Christian, and I cannot be called anything other than what I am. You could swap that sentence for almost anything that matters. I am this. I cannot be called something else. Whatever your this is, the faith, the integrity, the commitment, the version of yourself you have been working towards, Perpetua is asking whether you are willing to own it as completely as she did. Not to die for it necessarily, just to say it, clearly without apology, like a picture that cannot be called something else. So, the practical challenge this week. Think of one thing you are, one true thing about who you are or what you believe, that you have been softening or qualifying for the sake of other people's comfort. You don't have to perform it. You don't have to announce it. Just say it to yourself, privately, clearly. I am this, and I cannot be called anything other than what I am. And now for the closing prayer. Lord, thank you for Perpetua. Thank you that she picked up a pen in a prison cell and wrote it all down. The fear, the grief, the baby, the father's tears, the palace in the dark. So that 1,800 years later, we could read it and know we are not alone in whatever we are carrying. For everyone listening who is being asked to be something other than what they are, by family, by circumstance, by the quiet pressure of a world that rewards conformity, give them Perpetua's clarity, the kind that looks at a picture and says, it is what it is. I am what I am. And for every parent who loves a child they cannot protect, remind them that love and release are not opposites. Sometimes love looks like letting someone be fully who they are, even when it costs you. We love you, even when we don't understand the cost. Amen. One more thing before we go. Perpetua is the patron saint of mothers, expectant mothers, and interestingly, ranchers and butchers, which is a connection to the animals of the arena that has lasted through history. She shares her feast day with Felicity, her companion, the slave who gave birth in prison and walked into the arena 2 days later. They are always remembered together, the noble woman and the slave, the educated and the uneducated, two women from completely different worlds united by a single decision. Their feast day is March 7th, the day they died. The diary Perpetua wrote in that prison cell, the passions of Saint Perpetua and Felicity, was so widely read in the early church that St. Augustine himself had to warn his congregations not to treat it as equal to Scripture. It was that popular, that beloved. 1,800 years later, it is still in print, still being read, still speaking to us. She picked up a pen in a prison cell and wrote it down, and it lasted. Well, that is episode 6 of Everyday Saints. If Perpetua's story moved you, share it. One person. Someone who might need to hear that clarity is not cruelty, that knowing who you are is not stubbornness, that sometimes the bravest thing is just to say, I am what I am. Leave a review if you have a minute. It genuinely helps more people find the show. Next week, we go back to familiar territory, a name you know, a story most people get wrong, a man whose influence on the world is so enormous you have almost certainly been shaped by his ideas without knowing it, and a conversion that will surprise you. I'm John O'Connor. Thanks for sitting on the porch with me, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.